The absolute two worst ways that you might be coping with grief that you may not realize. Is it your physical health, your relationships, work, family dynamics, kids? Well, stick around and find out the two most harmful ways that you might be coping with feelings of grief. So, for those of you who are new, my name is Dr. Annette Athey, and I am a grief specialist and child development expert. I've been working in the field for 20 years with children and families, and I am here to share today those two things that may be causing problems in healthy grieving in your household. For those of you who are here live, I would love for you to comment hashtag live. If you are catching the replay, if you want to comment hashtag replay, that helps me keep this video up in our news feed so that those who might have missed our live tonight have a chance to catch it. Because again, we're talking about those two things that many of us might be doing and not even realizing how harmful it can be on our grief to healing journey. So the number one thing that you might be doing or might be guilty of is avoiding. And that's a big one. And the reason why avoiding is a problem is we're just taking our feelings, we're taking our thoughts, our energy, and we're just stuffing it down. It doesn't go away when we avoid it. It just sits in us internally, and most of the time then shows up with physical ailments or aches and pains or headaches, stomach aches. It shows up in other ways. So avoiding it really doesn't get rid of it. And again, the avoiding can show up in we're just ignoring it, we're stuffing it, maybe we're numbing it, maybe we are using alcohol or pills to just medicate and not feel it because we're tired of feeling the pain or it's too much. Maybe we're disconnecting or we're disassociating. So we're finding ways that are trying to protect our nervous system, but in the end, the feelings are still there. The grief is still there, and we're denying our feelings and our experience. And I don't know about any of you, but I know for myself very early on in my grief, avoiding was easy because it was easier to just set it aside than to look at it and deal with it and address it head on. And again, the overwhelm is so real and prevalent, especially in those beginning few months. For some of us, it's longer, but we're looking for any ways to get around the pain or to get around these feelings of uncomfortableness that we don't know what to do with. The second way that this might be showing up is eating. And eating is one of those things that we all have to do, but are we making smart choices? Are we making a decision that feeds and nourishes our body, or are we using it as a different way of avoiding our feelings? And so how eating might show up is we're trying to gain a sense of control. So maybe we are withholding, we're not eating certain things to an extreme, or maybe we're overeating. I know for myself, when my dad passed away and I got in this mindset of, well, fuck it, I'm going to eat it. You only live once. You're going to die young. It's fine. Just eat the donuts, eat the cake, eat the whatever it is that's in front of me, because then I don't have to feel, and I'm going to pretend like this food makes me feel better. Because most of us grew up in families where food equaled comfort and love. And so we have this misguided belief that when I eat these donuts, and in my household, it's Krispy Kreme donuts. So when I eat these Krispy Kreme donuts, it makes me think of my dad, and I think about when he would take the kids and I to get Krispy Kreme donut and how much we loved it. But I wasn't using it for that after he passed away. I wasn't using it as a connection. I was using it as a way to say, screw it, I don't care about it. I don't care about me. I'm not taking care of myself. I just want to feel better, believing that this donut would help. And again, lots of times, I mean, go back to your grief story. When your loved one passed away, everybody shows up with food. It's hard to get away from food when everybody's showing up with food. So these are some ways that we then start to punish ourselves, or we're mistaking what this food really means. And this is huge because food is everywhere and we need food, but if we're using it in the wrong ways, it somehow then becomes harmful. So I'm going to check the comments real quick. I see there's a couple comments. Susan has her hand raised. I have used food for comfort many times and it doesn't help. Absolutely, it doesn't help. We think it helps because in the moment it feels good. In the moment it releases those happy hormones. And then afterwards, then we blame ourselves and we shame ourselves and we feel bad for making this choice. And then here's the grief still sitting next to us, still present. It didn't go away. It didn't change it. And Ray also says, in my family, food was comfort and a reward. Yeah, again, we often reward our kids with, if you do this, you can have a treat, you can have ice cream. We create this relationship with food that can be very unhealthy. And when we add grief on top of that, we're drawn even more to what we think is going to make us happy, what's going to help us feel better. And then we end up with unhealthy food habits. So again, I'm going to check the comments. And Ray says, on top of the grief not going away, I'm beating myself up for overeating. Absolutely. Exactly what I just said. We are definitely thinking the same thing, and it sounds like very similar in your household. So this is definitely a place where it shows up. And if we're not aware, between avoiding and eating, we're doing two things that the grief just sits and waits. And even though we're stuffing it down with food or stuffing it down by avoiding it, it still just waits for us because the grief needs us to go through it. We need to feel it in order to resolve it. And so I'm just curious. I know Ray put in there that it was definitely her and raised her hand. Anybody else there that is watching the live or the replay, I would love to hear, are you guilty of avoiding or eating, or a little bit of both? Because again, if we're not aware what we're doing, then we're not changing it, we're not addressing it. And so standing back, taking inventory for yourself, but also for your kids. Are you promising them donuts because it makes you feel better and you think it makes them feel better too? Where instead of just addressing the topic head on and having the conversation, could you get through the grief differently? So, for those of you who are here, I would love for you to comment no more if you are interested in joining me in a free 15-minute grief to healing clarification call where I will give you the number one strategy to address grief differently in your household this week. And we could specifically look at maybe how in your household you're avoiding or you're using eating as a way to cope. And these are some things that if we could address them, excuse me, it could make grief look very different in your house. So for those of you who joined me, I'm so glad that you are here today. And I look forward to seeing you in the group. I will be checking the comments. So please feel free, even if you're catching the replay, to post any comments or responses. I'll see you in the group.